Think nature did not just kill these creatures. It preserved their most humiliating moments as a permanent monument to failure. You have been taught to see fossils as trophies. Museum exhibits of evolution's greatest achievements, the strongest jaws, the largest wings, the most efficient predators. This is a comfortable lie. The fossil record is not a hall of heroes. It is a crime scene archive spanning 3.2 billion years. And the bodies it contains are not the winners. They are the unlucky. The ones who died in precisely the wrong way, at precisely the wrong moment, in precisely the wrong chemistry. Somewhere in central Washington state, there is a cave. Not carved by water. Not formed by tectonic shift. This cave is the exact shape of a rhinoceros. Inverted. Suspended in basalt. 15 million years ago, a creature wandered into the path of a pyroclastic flow and was instantly entombed. The flesh rotted. The bones dissolved. But the rock had already hardened around the body like an industrial mold, a die-cast negative of biological failure, permanently fused into the Earth's crust. The rhinoceros did not leave a skeleton. It left architecture. This is what the fossil record actually preserves. Not life, but the geometry of death. And the deaths it captures are not peaceful. They are not dignified. A 13-foot flying predator, a creature that ruled Cretaceous skies for millions of years, was taken down by a single stationary leaf. A mass grave of giant sloths drowned in a pool of their own accumulated waste. Fish suffocated on molten glass that fell from the sky 3,000 kilometers from an asteroid impact. These are not anomalies. They are the rule. The fossil record is biased toward the bizarre, the accidental, the catastrophic. Because normal death does not fossilize. Normal death decomposes. Scatters. Returns to the cycle. To be preserved in stone requires disaster. And the disasters nature designed are far more creative than you have been told. To understand how a plant became a murder weapon, you first need to understand what the Ludodactylus was. 13 feet of wingspan. A skull designed for precision strikes. A pterosaur that hunted fish with the efficiency of a guided missile, diving at speeds that would blur any target into abstraction. It was not designed to fear plants. The yucca genus, commonly known as the Spanish bayonet, appears harmless. A spire of green leaves rising from desert soil. Ornamental. Stationary. But the leaf structure of the yucca is not soft tissue. It is a carbon fiber spear. The cellular architecture evolved to a rigidity comparable to industrial-grade composite materials, a biological harpoon standing motionless in the wind. The Ludodactylus never saw it as a threat. At cruising velocity, the plant was a blur of green. The impact was instantaneous. The leaf penetrated the throat membrane and lodged in the respiratory pathway. The creature did not crash from a predator attack. It crashed from a gardening accident. The fossil preserves the moment of impact. The leaf fragment still embedded in the tissue. A 100-million-year-old crime scene with the weapon still lodged in the wound. And the yucca is still active. Modern emergency rooms report injuries from the same genus, a serial killer that has been operational for longer than most mountain ranges have existed. But a plant impaling a pterosaur is almost elegant compared to what physics can do when it is given 3,000 kilometers and 400 degrees Celsius to work with. The Tanis site in North Dakota contains fish that died within minutes of the Chicxulub asteroid impact. Not from the shockwave. Not from the tsunami. From rain. Microtectites, gravel-sized bodies of natural glass, formed when the asteroid vaporized the ocean floor and ejected molten debris into the upper atmosphere. This debris cooled into spheres of obsidian and fell back to Earth at terminal velocity. Cosmic buckshot raining across an entire hemisphere. The fish at Tanis were breathing when the glass arrived. X-ray analysis reveals the microtectites lodged in their gill tissue, glowing amber beads clogging the respiratory pathways like sediment in a filtration system. They did not drown. They suffocated on molten sky. 3,000 kilometers from the impact crater. Close enough to choke on the debris. Far enough to survive the initial blast. This is the cruelty of planetary-scale death. The asteroid killed instantly at ground zero. But at the margins, it killed slowly. Fish gasping in water that had become toxic with suspended glass. The low-frequency roar of 100-meter seiche waves moving inland at the speed of a jet engine, a sound that would rupture human eardrums before you heard it. And still, this is faster than what the sloths endured. In Ecuador, at the Tank Loma site, researchers uncovered a mass grave of Eremotherium, giant ground sloths standing 12 feet tall and weighing several tons each. 80 tons of combined biomass clustered around a shallow watering hole. The deaths were not sudden. The sediment reveals a slow chemistry of disaster. Drought concentrated the remaining water into a shrinking pool. The sloths gathered. They defecated. They urinated. The waste accumulated. The pool became a toxic slurry, a biological waste bucket with no outflow and no dilution. The sloths that arrived to drink found themselves standing in a viscous trap of their own making. The ones that fell could not rise. The ones that stood could not leave. The fossil record does not tell us how long they struggled. Hours. Possibly days. The sediment does not record when they stopped moving. It only records that they were preserved in the precise geometry of their final positions, a diorama of collective failure, fossilized in their own waste. The fossil record does not preserve the fittest. It preserves those who died in precisely the wrong chemistry, at precisely the wrong geometry, in precisely the wrong moment. The environments that created these fossils were not passive settings. They were active executioners. Consider the pyroclastic flow that entombed the Cappadocia rhinoceros. 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to bake teeth into brittle glass. The skull that survived was not preserved by gentle burial. It was fired like a ceramic vase in a kiln set to 750 degrees Fahrenheit. The rock did not protect the animal. The rock became the animal. An industrial forge that used molten stone to create a 1-to-1 scale carbon copy of biological failure. At Tanis, the seiche waves moved like buildings laid sideways, 30 stories of water traveling through the North Dakota interior at speeds that turned debris into projectiles. The fish that died there experienced pressure differentials that would implode a human chest cavity. The microtectites in their gills were not the primary cause of death. They were the signature. The forensic evidence that this specimen died within the first hour of the Cretaceous extinction. And 3.2 million years ago, in Ethiopia, a different kind of death was being preserved. The AL333 site, known as the First Family, contains the remains of Australopithecus afarensis. Our direct ancestors. A group of hominins whose fingers show evidence of being stripped like calcium snacks by saber-toothed pack hunters. The fossil record of our own family tree is not a record of triumph. It is a record of predation. Of scavenging. Of bodies that were only preserved because something interrupted the normal process of consumption. For 3.2 million years, we assumed these fossils were the record of what lived. But standing in front of the Blue Lake Rhino Cave, the hollow space where a creature once was, you realize the fossil record might be something else entirely. Not a museum of life, but a museum of absence. The rhinoceros that created that cave is gone. Every molecule of its body has dissolved, decomposed, or been absorbed back into the geochemical cycle. What remains is not the animal. It is the space the animal once occupied. A negative impression. A mold. The earth did not preserve the rhino. The earth preserved the shape of its failure. And this reframing extends to every fossil you have ever seen. The Tyrannosaur skeleton in the museum lobby is not a record of what existed. It is a record of what was evacuated from the universe. The bones are mineral replacements, stone copies of organic originals that rotted away millions of years before humans evolved. We believe our history is written in books. Nature reminds us that history is actually written in the humiliating physics of how we fall. The rhino did not choose to become architecture. The pterosaur did not choose to be impaled by a plant. The sloths did not choose to drown in their own waste. And yet these are the moments that survived. These are the records that endured. The greatest achievements decompose. The catastrophic failures fossilize. Perhaps this is the final lesson of the fossil record. We do not control how we are remembered. We do not choose which moment of our existence becomes permanent. The universe selects for us, and its selection criteria have nothing to do with dignity, achievement, or worth. The rhinoceros cave still exists in Washington state. A hollow space in basalt. A permanent void where a creature once stood. Not a monument to the animal. A monument to the shape it left behind. If your life were to be frozen in stone this very second, captured in perfect three-dimensional detail for the next 15 million years, would it represent your greatest achievement? Or your most absurd mistake?